Okay, you are live, Chair Armstrong.
Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Infrastructure Committee for May 10th, 2021 as of 4:01 p.m. Madam Clerk, please conduct a roll call.
Prior to roll call, I will read the meeting procedures today. The procedures adopted for this meeting meet or exceed the standards set forth in Governor Newsom's Order N-25-20, which allows public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference to help the spread of COVID-19. At this time, I will conduct roll, and I would ask the chair to recognize me afterward to confirm certain matters for the record. Vice Chair Veros?
Yes.
And Chair Armstrong?
Here.
Thank you. Based on the responses to roll call, the record should reflect that all committee members can hear the proceedings clearly. If there are no objections, the record will further reflect that each committee member believes, based on voice or facial recognition or otherwise, that the persons representing themselves to be committee members are in fact committee members.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Seeing no objection, I will turn the meeting back over to the chair with a reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 2, the minutes approval. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of the Infrastructure Committee regular meeting from April 19th of 2021 as written?
I move the motion.
I'll second.
And just do roll call, Vice Chair Veros
Yes.
and Chair Armstrong.
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 3, public comment. At this time, I'll open public comment. Members of the audience are encouraged to address the Infrastructure Committee on any non-agenda items. Members of the public who are participating via Zoom will have the opportunity to make comments to the committee live through the Zoom application. No committee action can be taken at this meeting on issues raised during public comment, whether submitted by email or Zoom. To comment by Zoom, please click the raise your hand button or *9 on your telephone to request to speak. You'll then be unmuted when it's your turn to make your comment for up to 3 minutes. After the allotted time, you will then be remuted. Madam Clerk, I understand we have one written comment. Do we have any verbal comments today?
It doesn't appear anyone has raised their hands. I can go ahead and read the written comment and give some time for those in the audience. If they'd like to speak under this item, they can.
Okay, please do. Thank you.
So the first comment, or the only written comment that we received for this meeting, is from resident Luz Gomez. As a long-term Santa Rosa resident and a member of the Contra Costa County Sustainability Commission, I'm very interested in having Santa Rosa adopt a low carbon concrete code. We are facing unprecedented challenges because of a climate change, and we need to look at every possible action that a local jurisdiction can take to lower its climate impacts. Marin County recently adopted a low carbon concrete code, and I would like this committee to study this issue and make a recommendation to council. Thankfully, there is a very helpful toolkit already available to help local jurisdictions follow in Marin's footsteps and can be located at www.stopwaste.org. As you may know, the embedded carbon in concrete is one of the largest CO2 emission components of the building sector. I would love to see Santa Rosa not only follow Marin's example, but lead our region with ambitious GHG policies. I would also love to see the Bollinger Canyon / Iron Horse Trail overpass use the greenest, lowest global warming potential, GWP, materials possible to lower its carbon footprint. And that was the written comment that we received, and it appears we do not have any hands raised for public comment.
Okay, thank you for that, Madam Clerk. I will then close the public comment and we'll move on to item 4. So item 4.1 under new business, the Dougherty Valley Tree Management Program update and funding for FY 2021 and 22. And I will turn it over to the staff at this point for their report.
Good afternoon. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, today I'm here to present the Dougherty Valley Tree and Planting Strip Annual Work Plan. Some background. CIP was 935564. The Dougherty Valley Tree Management Plan was created in 2013. It was created to address infrastructure damage related to trees in Dougherty Valley in the planting strips. In 2017, City Council appointed a Citizens Tree Committee to provide input in developing the Dougherty Valley Tree and Planting Strip Management Plan to plant. This was completed and approved in November of 2017 by City Council. The plan recommends development of an annual work plan, AWP. The plan and the annual AWPs are an investment in mitigation and prevention of future city infrastructure and private property damage, and provide long-term cost savings in landscape maintenance and water. Here's an overview of the plan. There was 3 options that were developed by the tree committee, the Citizens Tree Committee. Option 1, the option provides a strategic process for developing an initial annual plan, followed by a multi-year plan to address trees that are creating damage to utilities, irrigation, sidewalks within Dougherty Valley residential streets. Option 2 is to reduce long-term costs and replace the trees in the smaller planting strips before they cause any more damage to irrigation systems or sidewalks. Replace the turf in the planting strips at the same time. Option 3 was to continue to respond to requests for service, allow the trees to grow as they are, and fix the problem as they are reported within the allotted budget staffing. The Citizens Tree Committee preferred option 1. Here's a little overview of option 1. Develop an AWP to address trees creating damage to utilities, irrigation, and sidewalks. Retain as many existing trees as possible. Respond to residents' inquiries like CRMs. Proceed with a planned sequence of locations, geographical neighborhoods to address tree based upon severity and damage and size of planting strip. Adhere to decision-making matrices for tree retention, replacement, and removal. Existing damage, type of damage, meaning surface roots, water, electrical, sidewalk liabilities, etc., and severity of damage. Turf is to be replaced around the trees with a ground cover and water efficient irrigation. Notify the homeowners what the plan is and when the work will be completed. Provide the homeowner with a contact to discuss the plan or meet on site. So here's the process we do right now with the current annual work plan we have. We do a site survey, which staff inspects and evaluates each subdivision annually and prioritizes project areas. It's based on severity of damage, size of planting strips, and types of water, using either potable or reclaimed water. Then, notification, we notify homeowner associations if applicable. And then if not, then we notify residents in subdivisions by mail with letters. Assessment, we assess individual trees utilizing the site assessment tool in conjunction with decision-making matrices for tree retention, replacement, and removal. Then after that, we do the posting. We notice of tree removal. Basically, we have a sign we made up that we post on each tree, the reasons why. If it's too close to the water meter, sewer damage, replacement species inappropriate for the site conditions. A QR code and contact information is provided for residents' questions or concerns. Then we have a waiting period. Staff provides approximately 7 days for residents to communicate questions and concerns to staff about the project. Then after that, we do removal. Trees and stumps are removed. Once that's done, we do sidewalk repair. We inspect for sidewalk damage. If less than 3/4 of an inch of lift, sidewalk will be shaved. Anything greater will be removed and replaced. Then after that, we do the landscape removal. That's turf is removed for the entire planting strip. Soil remediation is performed to reduce compaction, improve soil permeability, and soil quality in preparation for planting replacement trees and ground cover. Then we do planting. We plant trees utilizing Appendix 3, page 23 of the Dougherty Valley Tree and Planting Strip Management Plan. Then ground cover species is used to replace existing turf grass. Then the irrigation, we convert the overhead irrigation to bubblers. It's one bubbler per shrub, two bubblers per tree. Then after that, we do the mulch. We add 2 to 3 inches of mulch in depth. So here's just some completed areas that we did in 2017 and 18. You'll see Millstream Lane, Ivy Hill Way, which we didn't plant. This was a potable water area, so this was during the drought of 2017. So we removed the turf and didn't plant this one. Rothbury Rutherford Glen, this is a reclaimed water area, so we planted this. And then Windermere Parkway down by Tassajara. We didn't plant that. Once again, this is a potable water area, and it was during the drought that we didn't do this. 2018-19, we did Sleeping Meadow. Once again, this is a potable water area. We actually planted this because the drought was during the 17-18, so we got to plant this one. And this was actually in front of residents' homes. So we felt the need, we should probably do that one. Velvet Leaf Circle and Rosencrest Drive. And as you can see, as the pictures go on, you can see the development of the plant material, how it's going to fill in the park strip where the turf used to be. And then 1920, we did Lilac Ridge Road and Sweetgale, and then Tulip and Calico Court, and Arrowfield and Allenmere. And then 2021, we did Chancery and Wycliffe and North Chantrella, and we're currently working on South Chantrella by Ustalaga. Here's just a map that gives you an overview of, each year that we've done the tree planting plans, the AWPs. And it just gives you an idea. This is Dougherty Valley. It gives you an idea of how much area there actually is that we still need to address. This is another map I put in there just to show you in the purple. What you'll see is these areas are actually already been converted. AB 1881 was developed a while back by the water departments, stating that you could no longer put turf grass in a park strip. So these are actually already converted with the bubblers that we have been doing in the AWPs, and the turf was removed and planted with plant material with a ground cover. I wish they would have started this a little earlier. Proposed for 21-22, we will send out notification letters to the 3 subdivisions in the RA, 7981, which is Hedgecrest Circle, 8631 is Belladonna, Camasia Way, 9144 is Balmoral, Emerson Lane, Kennard, Zance Way, and then RA 1124, which is Watermill Road. I don't know if anyone's been by Watermill Road, but since the parking is not very good there's a lot of people parked on the street, so it's very hard for the street sweepers and everybody to get in there. So we really looked at this area because we get a lot of complaints for the street just being a mess, which it's really hard to get in there and clean that from the leaf fall from the trees. We actually send out a letter, and this is the information that we do in the letter. We basically give a notification of when we are going to schedule the annual work project for the tree removal and the turf replacement. We give them some dates. Then we give them a background where it's basically gives them the link to go on the website, and they can actually read the plan for the residents. And then on the next, and then we show them the replacement tree. We actually give them a photo of the new tree, what it'll look like, so they have an idea, and then the type of ground cover. So what we do is we use a multiple different ground covers in our plan now, and give them a photo of what it'll look like. And then obviously some contact information if they have any questions or they want to meet on site to talk about the project. So here are the ones we proposed for this year. Hedgecrest Circle, which you can see the size of some of these trees, and we'll get into the concrete damage a little after this. There's approximately 11,583 square feet of turf in this area, and we're looking at about approximately 40 removals. Then we have subdivision 8631, which is roughly 36,197 square feet of turf. And again, 46 removals in this area. And you can see this picture on the right. You can see what the tree root damage does. It's actually lifting a utility vault. And this is very common in Dougherty Valley, the PG&E vaults and being lifted, and it's a safety hazard. The next one, subdivision 9144, there's roughly 28,419 square feet of saw or turf with 67 removals. And again, this is, you can just see the tree roots. And this one on the right, you can actually see there's a valve box, an irrigation valve box right there that's going to be destroyed. And then once again, watermill. This is, there's roughly 69,106 square feet of turf, and there's roughly 133 removals. As you can tell in these pictures, and these pictures don't do it justice because we just recently cleaned this, but it's so hard to do any maintenance whatsoever in this area. So we're looking at removing these trees and changing this out. And here's what I noted on earlier about Hedgecrest Circle. You can just see some of the sidewalk damage that's happening. This one in the middle, you can see it's lifted. And then once again, stub toe here. So this is just the map of what we're proposing for AW 2122. These are the areas that we're looking at doing. And then here again is a summary that I just talked about. It's roughly 286 removals. 214 will be replaced, and roughly 145,305 square feet of turf will be removed. I think that's a big thing to look at, especially right now when we're looking at a possible drought situation for this year. Here's some estimated costs. It's roughly $500 for the tree removal. These are estimated prices, of course. Tree replacement, $300. Turf conversion to ground cover planting, $3 a square foot. Irrigation modification, $1.40 a square foot. And then we put $100,000 for sidewalk repairs for all 4 sites for roughly $946,546. So the remaining balance, the $53,454, will be there for any CRMs that say property owners on tree-related infrastructure damage that would need to be addressed outside the AWP areas. The project costs. This is just a breakdown of what we've spent so far. Total project budget since inception is $2,776,246. The funding sources have been general fund, DV, CSA, and in 2019 we got a certificate of participation debt services funds for $1.22 million. The unidentified funds for 2122, we're proposing $1 million that we need to continue this project. This will address about 19% of the area addressed by 2122. And then plan implementation, water and maintenance savings will be realized. So here's a breakdown of what we've saved so far. This is for our landscape maintenance savings. So when you take out the turf area, they will no longer be mowing. So they will be doing ground cover maintenance, which it saves us roughly per subdivision or RA, roughly 30% from their annual work project. So this is just a breakdown for 17-18. You didn't notice the cost savings till 18-19, and then so on for a total of 112,548. So every time we complete a subdivision or a RA, we write a letter to our contractors requesting a reduction, and usually we get the reduction, and then that's how that all breaks down. I'm going to turn this over to John Belf, our irrigation supervisor. He's going to go over how he came up with these numbers for water.
Good afternoon. So on the screen right now is a cumulative total of all the AWP projects and the savings that we have seen. Now, these are not annual totals. What we needed to do was find some comparable time periods. It's divided into East Bay mud and ESRSD conversions. which they both have different unit rates. And the first conversions for East Bay Mud was in 2019, and the first conversion for DSRSD was in 2018. So what we are looking at is a 6-month time period compared from 2018 for East Bay Mud to 2020, and then a 6-month time period from DSRSD 2017 to 2020. So these are not annual totals. We are looking at our highest usage months, which go from May to October. And as you can see from the savings, every AWP project we have converted, we are seeing savings, which all total up to be $20,000. And the May to October time period is actually 75% of our total water costs over the course of an entire year. Next slide. So as I said, East Bay Mud and DSRSD have different unit rates. So we've been tracking this from 2017 to 2020. East Bay Mud from 2018, when we did the pre-conversion year, it's increased the recycled unit rate 16% and the potable unit rate 22%. And DSRSD 13% for the potable unit rate, the recycled unit rate 15%. So even with these unit rates increasing by those percentages, we have still seen water savings in the year 2020. We obviously don't have 2021 numbers because we have not gone from May to October. Next slide. So this is an example of how we got the AWP location, the pre-conversion versus the post-conversion water savings. So like I said, we needed comparable time periods because some of these projects are in their infancy. So what we did with East Bay Mud is we went to 2018 and we took 3 water statements from July, September, and November. These statements are similar to your water bills at home. They consist of approximately 60 days. So we're looking at 2 months per statement, which equals out to a 6-month time period. So then we calculated the cost in dollars for that time period in 2018. We compared it to what we paid in 2020, and then we got a pre versus post conversion difference. So for this subdivision, 8131, 8132, which is the Lilac Ridge at Sweetgale area, we saw a savings of 33.44% in that 6-month time period from 2020 compared back in 2018, which is pre-conversion. Next slide. This is subdivision 8027. So this is the same conversion of 2018 versus 2020. We saw a conversion difference of $3,362. And for this subdivision, it was an 18% savings. So some of these subdivisions vary in the percentage savings due to the condition of the subdivision prior to conversion. If tree roots are causing major damage, obviously the water costs would be high from all the water that we lost. So maybe those subdivisions were not showing the same percentage savings as others. Next slide. This next slide is just a graphic representation of the same subdivision 8131. You can see back in 2018, September 20th, 2018, we had a bill of $8,500 for water. And if you fast forward to July 24th, 2020, we're at $62.28, and that number is going down. So this is a visual representation showing those water savings and the trend going downward. And this is subdivision 8027. Because there was only 18% savings, the graphical representation isn't as great, but it's still showing a trend line of 83.62 in September of 2018, and then September of 2020, 62.18. So again, that number is still going down with the savings that we're seeing. And as part of these projects, when we plant these projects, they're drought tolerant material, but they don't come in drought tolerant. There's an establishment period that we should expect to see more savings as the plant material becomes more drought tolerant and the irrigation needs are lessened.
Great, thank you, John. Next steps, recommend funding source for funds to be appropriated to CIP 935564 as part of the 21-22 capital budget. Continue to address individual CRMs. The AWP will continue to be scheduled and coordinated with the city's contractors and progress according to the plan as funds are available. And staff will develop a new AWP for FY 22-23 during the city's annual budget development and approval process. Any questions?
Okay, let me see if Vice Chair Rose has any clarifying questions or comments for the staff.
Thank you. Thanks for presentation. So one question I have is regarding the cost of these tree replacements. Like, do we have estimate of how much it is increasing every year? Like, for example, like if we are replacing trees this like last year versus this year, how much is the increase in overall cost for one tree? Do we have some info on that?
Well, the cost is based on the size of the tree. So the removal is all about the size of the tree. Replacement for replacing the tree is depending on, it's all a 15-gallon tree. So those replacements range in the same range year after year. Where our cost may change is, you know, the contractors. So say, for instance, they have a CPI increase of 3% or 2%. That's what we end up paying extra for.
Oh, okay. So I'm just
Hopefully
looking. Okay, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I was just trying to understand, if the urgency on this mitigation of this issue. So my understanding is that if we keep delaying it, it will become more and more expensive.
Correct. Yeah, the bigger the trees get, the more damage is going to happen to, you know, say infrastructure, say your sidewalks. You know, it's the bigger the tree, the harder it is. And after we actually remove the trees and the stump, the contractor actually does the handwork to remove all those tree roots that I showed you earlier. So as you can tell, the more tree roots, we're just paying for time. We pay them, you know, hourly to do this kind of work, and the longer it takes for them to remove the tree roots, the more it costs us.
Okay. And do we have any total like number of CRMs right now, the requests coming from the residents, not within the plan, but just CRM?
So what happens is Gary, which is our arborist that usually does this project, when he gets a CRM, what he does is he sends them a response back saying, we have your information, we will look into it, and he calculates everything and puts it into the AWP. So unless it's something that's, you know, causing damage, like right now where that has to be removed, then we basically just calculate all of the CRMs. So as far as open CRMs, we don't have a lot of open CRMs right now.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
So a couple questions I've got. We talked a little bit about drought, and but at this point, the plan is still to put in the ground cover and do the turf conversion with ground cover.
Correct.
And I guess at any point during the year, if things kind of get critical, you just make a decision to kind of halt that kind of mid-year, or what? How's that work?
Well, I think in this situation is if we do have a drought, I think we can, if we can, I would like to continue with the AWPs in the neighborhoods, and we look more at the arterials, like we can East Branch, Windermere, Bollinger. If we're in a major drought situation, I think those are the areas that we can just turn off for now to save the money, as far as, you know, doing our part to say if there's a 50% cut, and do our part, turn these areas off, and then continue to work in front of the subdivisions to convert these from the overheads to bubblers, because it's a big difference. We were looking at roughly 1.6 gallons per minute for a pop-up, where you're looking at 0.5 gallons per minute for a bubbler. So it's huge, and we're talking thousands and thousands of sprinkler heads at Dougherty Valley.
So to me, I see that as sort of an operational decision. Once you sort of get council approval and everything on the budget and things like that, then if you've got to make that flex operationally, I see the staff as being able to do that from my perspective. Did we back off at all last year in the AWP due to the pandemic, or just full speed ahead?
We didn't back off. We slowed up a little bit just in March and April and May. But we were we got the projects done. We were kind of ahead of the game before this happened. So we're okay. It all depends on the size of the area. We looked about 2 to 3 months for each subdivision to finish. So some are quicker. It just depends on the size of the tree. And, the biggest thing is, like I explained earlier, the tree roots is that's the time period that we look at. Removing the tree, removing the stump, that's fairly quick, but removing the grass is fairly quick, but removing those tree roots is just the time period that, the bigger the tree, the more roots, that's very time consuming. But we actually did okay. We're going to finish this before July, this last project on South Chantrella, and we completed what we said we would complete.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Before we kind of make any final comments on this subject, I'd like to open up public comment on this item for item 4.1. Is there anyone out there raising their hand that wants to speak on this particular item? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. We'll close public comment. We'll just kind of close up some final comments. Vice Chair Rose, any final comments on this item?
Yeah, it's important that we mitigate this issue of replacing trees before it gets overburdened for our city on financial as well as the aesthetics of our city, right? So I would definitely like to continue this replacement of trees as per option 1 that was picked up. And it's like, in this call, do we need to mention any fund related information, or are we good with the suggestion that we need to go with option, whatever the option we are going, and we need to continue to mitigate by replacing these trees? So do we need to talk about any? I think the funding should go to the finance committee, right? We don't need to discuss about funding in this call. Do we need to talk about funding?
Actually, the funding, Vice Chair Varos, is going to go to the City Council tomorrow evening as part of the 5-year CIP budget review process.
Oh.
So if the committee today wants to have any recommendations, then I can mention that tomorrow, and the council can talk further about that.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Maria. So on the budget was, I'm looking at our budget workshop slides that we reviewed during our last budget workshop. I do see there is a general fund increase in our general fund reserves around 1.6 million on slide 15. That's what I see. So that may be one of the options that we can look into to see if we can fund for this CIP.
Okay, thank you. Again, Sean and John, thanks for your report. As was put in the report, I agree, this AWP is an investment. It certainly covers a lot of areas that I think all the council members feel is important: public safety, for sure, quality of life, fiscal responsibility. I think this is all doing the right things. Sounds like the methodology for determining the locations and things like that, you got a sound methodology for figuring out the AWP. It also makes sense to me that we ought to do what we can to realize water savings, especially during another drought year, and realize some of those long-term maintenance savings by doing all this installation of the bubblers and the ground cover. I thought I saw in a report there was a $1 million proposed budget allocation, or at least there's a need for unidentified funds right now for $1 million. yeah, I would have been okay with probably even more than that, but that sounds good to me. That might come, I know we're about to talk about it, but maybe that's an option to use the infrastructure maintenance fund for some of that as well. So, you know, as I read through the staff report, and I got to the, and I listened to the report here on water and maintenance savings, it looked like we saved quite a bit of money after doing this conversion, which was good. I think the water costs are only going to keep going up as they have been. And so just another reason to keep this program going strong. Costs are going to keep rising. I think we may be entering a period of inflation potentially soon. And I see this as a pay me now or pay me later kind of thing. Unfortunately, if we do it later, then we get less bang for the buck. So I'm good with this issue proceeding to the city council as part of the budgeting process. Okay. Do you need any other input or staff guidance from the committee? Are you good with that item? Okay.
We are, thank you.
Okay, then we'll go on to item 4.2 for the infrastructure maintenance fund, and back over for the staff report.
Okay, good afternoon, Chair Armstrong and Vice Chair Veroth. Are you seeing, trying to see which screen you're seeing right now?
Seeing number 8 slide.
Yeah, we're
IMF funded projects.
yeah, slide 8 or so.
Okay. Let me go to the beginning. All right. Okay. Are you seeing duplicate slides or you're seeing this one?
We're seeing the first slide.
Okay, perfect. All right. Good afternoon, and I'm happy to be presenting to you the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund update. This is presented to the Infrastructure Committee annually, just so that the committee is aware of how this fund is performing each year. So the purpose of this fund is to fund items that are either for facilities or infrastructure amenities that have reached their useful life, or also used for repairs or renovations of facilities or infrastructure amenities. This can include anything in the buildings or any aquatic items, traffic signal equipment and enhancements, and where there is limited funding for drainage or park amenities. It began as a building maintenance fund, and what the council did at that time was provide about $200,000 a year from the general fund. And
Maria, if I could interrupt, I don't know if you're trying to advance the slides, but we're still on the cover slide.
You are? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Do you see the background?
I do now.
Okay, I apologize. I'm so sorry. Okay, so the building maintenance fund, $200,000 per year from the general fund, which was how it was initially handled. And so with the limited amount of funding that is available, staff had to prioritize or defer items to replace or repair. And we had to also postpone work or provide remedial repairs as opposed to doing the full types of repairs. So what ended up happening is we had unplanned repairs and had higher deferred maintenance costs. So in fiscal year 16-17, there's an extensive review of all the unfunded infrastructure needs. And this was based on our facilities and signals maintenance renovation plans that the Public Services Division has, how we track all of our amenities and their useful lives. So at that time, we ended up determining what our true shortfall would be over a 5-year period. And the council approved funding our first year priority work in the amount of $1 million. This is when we changed it to the infrastructure maintenance fund because we realized that it's not just the buildings, but we have other amenities that we needed to fund. So the council also talked about putting in about $1.5 million a year from the general fund. And then that mid-year of 16-17, they approved 1.5 million. And so to continue seeding this fund in 17-18, the council approved 2 million from the general fund to be put into the infrastructure maintenance fund. So looking at the amount of funding that goes into the infrastructure maintenance fund, we balance that against the needs, depending on the timing of the amenities when they reach the end of their useful life. So as the funds fluctuate, we want to be sure that there's enough fund in the infrastructure maintenance fund to continue seeding the work that is needed for that particular year or the following years. So we do have a process for determining the projects to be funded. And so what we do is identify the items that are in our maintenance and repair plans. And then what we do is we take those items and do a field verification of each of these items to evaluate the actual condition and reprogram it accordingly. So if staff goes out and notices that a bench or an HVAC repair or whatnot is not really at its end of its useful life, that we have a couple more years, then we'll move it out 2 years, 3 years, what have you. So then that way, what we're programming in years 1 through 5 is of a more accurate representation of what needs to be funded for that particular year. In addition, we look at priority of each item. So we have a priority ranking of 1, 2, and 3. So priority 1 is for all repairs that are dealing with safety issues or hazards, complying with regulatory requirements and mandates, supporting the general fund, master plan goals, and any operational breakdown imminent resulting in a shutdown. So those are the ones that we want to be sure that we are funding. And those are the top of our list. So when we start looking at priority 2 and 3, then we're looking at items that if there's a limited amount of funding, then we go to the second and third priority and say, okay, which ones can we push off maybe and defer to the year or the following year after that. So priority number 2 is to reduce ongoing repair, increase functionality or enhanced recreational experience, and sustainability. And then priority number 3 are planned replacements, expenditure offset or generating revenue, and aesthetics. So I wanted to highlight the fact that we do go through an extensive process to determine what projects are on that list for that particular year. That way we can really understand how much funding we need to request for that particular year. As a result of that, there are a number of projects that are annually funded by the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund. The majority of them are related to buildings and structures as well as aquatics. And then we also have our traffic signals improvements and enhancements that is in this category. We've also have funded in 17-18, so it's not something that happens annually. So if an unforeseen condition happens on one of our infrastructures, then we're looking for a funding source, then the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund can fund that. So in 17-18, we actually had 2 projects that fell into this category and presented to the Infrastructure Committee and the Council. There was a slide at El Costa Senior Center, was behind the building. And so that since that is city-owned property, we were looking for a funding source, and Infrastructure Maintenance Fund allocated $300,000 towards this project. Also, the drainage infrastructure repair, the drainage mitigation fund was very limited, and we had a number of drainage infrastructure repairs that we needed to do that were a priority. And again, the funds were allocated from the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund. The council in 1819 started looking at buildings and ways that we could be more efficient in doing the buildings. So the list that is on this previous slide, you see that we have flooring, HVAC, duct cleaning, roof, painting, interior, exterior amenities, etc. Well, each of those happen in all of our different facilities. So what staff did is we started looking at one facility and said, okay, what are these items that are coming up at the end of their useful life? And how can we do them all at the same time? So in doing this, we saved on mobilization, we saved on minimizing the impacts to the facility and the public. We got better costs associated with it. And then it also gave us the opportunity to look at modernizing the building, the finishes, and then end up having this opportunity to have a grand reopening, as you want to call it. So we were able to do that with the El Costa Senior Community Center. And of course, that was before COVID. So we had a great grand reopening for that. And then the San Ramon Community Center, which is now open as well. So both of these were funded out of the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund. And this is our methodology as we look at each building and look at what items need to be addressed for each building and do them all at one time. There are still projects in the CIP that still continue to have funding source needs. They aren't regularly funded or maybe not at all yet funded by the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund, but it could have a potential to be funded by this fund. We have our projects in the Dougherty Valley area, usually funded by the CSA, but general fund. Our drainage infrastructure, we did do this once. So if our fund from our drainage mitigation fund is low, then we may need to look for funding from the infrastructure maintenance fund. This fund is based on any current development projections that are happening. So if that money isn't coming in and we see some repairs that need to happen with our drainage infrastructure, then we may look at the infrastructure maintenance fund to fund those items. And then we have the park-related CIP projects. That's similar to drainage because that is funded by Park Development Fund, also based on current development. Right now, the fund remains positive based on the current development projects, but if the funding isn't coming in to support the park-related projects that we have, then we would look at the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund. So one thing that really has helped this fund and it has really helped the city is the 2019 Certificate of Participation debt financing. So the COP was approved in October of 2019 by the City Council and provided $24 million in proceeds for capital projects. And the money is to be utilized over a 3-year period. So because of that, we had projects that were identified in the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund now can be funded by the COP. So we have the El Costa Senior Community Center renovation, drainage infrastructure repairs, the City Hall reconfiguration. We have the Dougherty Station Community Center and Library, San Ramon Community Center, and the San Ramon Olympic Pool and Aquatic Park renovation. So all of these add up to about 11.5 million. So that really saved the really finding those funding sources to do these renovations. What this will also do is if we can really hit each of these facilities and do their repairs, then the useful life for a lot of these items will be moved further down into the future years. So to date, the general fund contributions since the inception of the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund, we had 17-18 for 3.5 million. 18-19, we had budget constraints during that year. So the contribution was 435,000. 2019-20 is 1.5 million. Because of the COP, there were no general fund contributions to the fund. And this year, or for the following year, we're proposing 1.5 million. Attachment A shows the details of all the projects over a 5-year period with the 21-22 expenditures proposed of 1.66 million. The ending fund balance of the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund is 442,000. So after a 5-year period, based on the various items we have programmed in the CIP, the ending fund balance after the 5th year is 2.2 million. And again, this doesn't include any unforeseen items like the Alcosta senior landslide that we experienced, or any other funding needs that may come up during this 5-year period. And this is the sheet that I was mentioning. It's attachment A that shows all of the projects over the 5-year period. So the next steps would be to incorporate any feedback from the committee. Tomorrow, I'll be presenting the draft 5-year CIP at the council budget meeting on May 11th, which will include the infrastructure maintenance funded CIPs, and obtain final feedback from the council as part of the 21-22 budget process and the 5-year CIP budget process. So with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Are there any clarifying questions or comments for the staff? Vice Chair Veros.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. I did have one question, I guess. You know, when we were talking a minute ago about the Dougherty Valley Tree program, and you mentioned unidentified funds, that $1 million proposed budget allocation, but it was unidentified funds at this point for that 1 million. And in this presentation, you also suggested that there are some projects in the Dougherty Valley area that could get funded by the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund. Is that what you're alluding to? I mean, is that the connection, that it might go towards the trees, or anything in general in the project wise in the Dougherty Valley?
It's anything in general. The Dougherty Valley projects are funded by basically the general fund. So it would be an approval by the council to use general fund money to pay for whether it is the trees or whether it's the landscape renovation in Dougherty Valley, any other projects. We have irrigation booster pumps that get paid for out of the general fund. So that's the reason why it's mentioned. So it's not specific for the trees. It's just the general aspect of the Dougherty Valley projects are funded by the general fund, basically.
Okay, and you're recommending, if I heard you right, that the $1.5 million continue to go from the general fund towards the FY 21-22 IMF. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Let me see if there's any public comments. That's all the questions I have. Let me open up public comment, and we'll pause a second to see if anybody's out there. Don't even know if we have anyone observing this meeting. Any hands raised?
There are no hands raised for public.
Okay. All right, then we'll close public comment. Any closing remarks from Vice Chair Veros?
I think infrastructure maintenance fund is one of the best things that we have as part of our financial policy. I really admire our previous council who visioned this one because I believe in ounce of prevention always worth of a pound of cure. So it's a good idea that we have a strategic plan on how we address these repairs or the CIP projects and all those. And rather than just putting the money under the mattress and reserves and all that, I'm glad that our previous council took a right step in the right direction to fund infrastructure maintenance fund and help us applying towards our proactive work. Thanks for presentation, Maria. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise, I think there was some good foresight to put all this together back when that happened. And it makes good sense to me, this whole idea of renovating a building at a time. I mean, you can focus the resources and lessen the disruptions, and potentially it's a cost savings over time and an efficiency savings. And overall, I support this, the 1.5 million from the general fund towards this coming fiscal year's budget for the IMF. And I appreciate the report and I look forward to talking more about this here in the very near future.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do you need any other comments or guidance from the infrastructure committee, or are you good on this?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, thank you again. All right, then we'll move on to committee member comments. Just item 5. Any other comments from Vice Chair Burrows?
I don't have any. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. I don't have any others either. Item 6, unfinished business. I'm not aware of any unfinished business. So we will move to item 7 and adjournment. And so the next meeting of the infrastructure committee will be published at a later date. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone.